a brief little insert there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first technology show brought to you by Technology Magazine and BizClick Media Group. As you can already tell, we are coming to you live today. Anything can happen in the next 30 or 40 minutes. We've had the internet dropping out. We've had interference from all over the world coming in. So let's all cross our fingers, cross our toes, cross our eyes, and let's see what happens. So joining me today, I'm delighted to say we have Technology Magazine's senior editor, Mr. Paddy Smith. How are you doing, Paddy?
I'm looking forward to when this drops off air, and one of us, and I'm not sure who, becomes the kind of the Jackie Weaver of technology.
Right, okay. Now, for readers who might be under the age of 40 and are not residing in the UK, do you want to explain who Jackie Weaver is?
I think everyone in the world must have seen the parish council video, the Zoom meeting of the parish council with Jackie Weaver. You don't have the authority, Jackie Weaver. If you haven't seen it, go on YouTube and watch it quickly before someone buys it as an NFT and you can't watch it anymore without paying a royalty.
Okay, and I must say that when Paddy says go and watch it, he doesn't mean right now. What he means is stay here, watch the rest of this top quality show, and then after the show, then maybe go onto YouTube and research Jackie Weaver.
Yeah,
okay,
wait until we plunge off air unexpectedly and then go and watch it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Well, this is going brilliantly. Now, before we go any further, I need to tell you about our reader poll that we've got running at the moment. So if you are following us on LinkedIn, and you probably are, then we've had a poll running for the last week or so, I think. And the question that we asked is, which company do you trust most with your data? Now, this was multiple choice, so it's not a question of just random answers coming in. So which company do you trust most with your data? Now, there is still time to have your say on this and cast your vote, so go and find the poll online, and we'll be having the results of that towards the end of the show. Now, before we go any further as well, I will say, if you are looking for our poll or anything that we talk about during the show, you can just go to our website, which is www.technologymagazine.com. There we go. And you can also visit our sister title, which is aimagazine.com. I think I'm going to stop saying www. At the beginning of the URL. I mean, people don't actually say that anymore, do they?
It's very early 2000s. I remember people reading out those long URLs, / this, / that on the BBC. Hours it took. Hours.
Exactly. And also, for some reason, I really struggle saying www. Maybe it's my fat tongue in my northern mouth. So anyway, let's move on. And without further ado, let's take a look at what's been happening in technology recently with the technology news.
Well, I'm a bit worried now.
What's that, Paddy? You're worried about something?
Yeah, I was a bit sorry. I wasn't expecting that little stab to come in. You can tell I'm a novice. I was just a bit worried. If the first bit of news I was going to do is about Facebook, but I don't want to poison our poll results. But let's do it anyway. We're only telling the truth. So this is Facebook and its oversight board. So it's set up an oversight board to oversee it, but it made the oversight of thinking it could just chuck all of its problems that way. So it passed over to the Facebook oversight board the decision about whether to allow Donald Trump back on the platform, and the oversight board pretty swiftly and unequivocally came back with the answer: make up your minds about what you want to do. You've got to set some rules and stick by them, and it doesn't matter who it is. Stop trying to fob off your problems on us. Thank you. Signed, the oversight board. It's quite interesting, because it's all about sort of self-regulation in social media, and these guys, they all want to be seen as kind of guardians of moral fairness and to pretend that they know exactly what's going on, and they're always rooting out the troublemakers and so on, but they're not really, and they're failing at it, and they're trying to set up mechanisms where when they fail at things, they they can fob it off on someone else, and it's not working. So it begs the question of whether some higher level regulatory body should be set up, or whether government should get involved. There's always news stories about governments sort of prodding away at these people. There are inquiries, but they never seem to get anywhere. And so there's a big question there about whether the tech giants can be trusted. And I've poisoned the poll, haven't I? I mean, Facebook's going to come flat last.
Sorry, I think our poll is almost closed anyway, so I don't think you're going to have that much influence over that. But it is interesting. I mean, who actually sits on this board? Have you got any idea?
I did have a look over the list, but that was about a week ago, and I couldn't give you any names. It's quite a serious board. It's got names on it. They're good.
Yeah.
You know, and it's got enough teeth to go back to Facebook and say, do your own bidding. So it's. I mean, it's not the wrong thing to do. It's just not how it should be done. You don't run your own regulation. You can't have uniformity across a sector or a subsector if you don't have one organization. You know, this isn't a body. The Facebook Oversight Board does not oversee Twitter or TikTok. You know, it's just for Facebook. I don't actually know if it does other Facebook properties like WhatsApp and Instagram, but it's interesting because there's definitely a potentially a need for something like this, but it comes down to who should be in charge of it. You know, should it be these are global organizations, which is the other problem. So if you say, well, it should be run by the government, then that's a different thing to do. Different governments. You know, you look at what is happening in India at the moment, and social media offices closing down over there because they don't want to have to deal with the government regulation. It's easier just to up sticks and then pretend that you don't have to listen, because although your platform is accessible from anywhere in the world, you don't actually have an office there, so you're off the hook.
Yeah, I think you're right. In many ways, these social media giants are essentially publishing companies, aren't they? And they do have to self-regulate, but certainly from what I heard on the makeup of the board, it does sound like it's I want to choose my words carefully here. It does feel like it's there for show. It does feel a bit like, this is our oversight board. Look at these wonderful people that are on our board. So everything that we do must be absolutely great and wonderful and above board, because we have these people to keep us in check. But you're absolutely right in how do you regulate that on a global scale? But also, I heard an interview between one of the co-founders of Reddit and the excellent BBC presenter Amol Rajan, and he was asking the Reddit guy about regulation, for instance. He said, well, look, you're a publisher, you're a media company, you're not a social media platform, website, you are a publisher, and you're journalists, so who should be regulating you? And the guy from Reddit welcomed it, and he said, well, yeah, we'd love to be regulated, but in the US, for instance, it's not just about different countries. Even in the US, you've got some sides of the House calling for more regulation and some sides of the House calling for less regulation. So even just taking the US market, it's almost impossible, because there's no clear direction or common ground as to where these people should be heading. Let's move on then to another story, which I know that we'd highlighted, and that is the sale of good old Yahoo. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, so I mean, I think this is more of a talking point. I mean, the story is very, very simple, which is that a private equity group, Apollo Global Management, who you've probably never heard of before now, has paid $5 billion for Yahoo, and Yahoo was owned by Verizon, and they've sold it for pretty much what they bought it for. It's not a huge amount in big technology terms. Yahoo has a lot of content. It's got a lot of brand. But Yahoo was Scott. I mean, you remember the birth of the internet. We're of a vintage, and Yahoo is first flush of the internet. It's predates Web 2.0, if you remember that. And so it's quite interesting that it's still around. There are lots of people who are still around. People like Google, but Google has grown hugely. I mean, it's Google and Yahoo are not the same beast at all anymore. And
Yeah.
I just wonder why a company like Yahoo is worth $5 billion, really. What's it got that other people haven't got, other than a recognizable, if slightly silly name? So it was a sort of talking point about how long should we keep these aging web properties knocking about the market, rather than doing the nice thing, which is to take them out the back and put a rug over them and shoot them in the head.
Okay. That was a talking point. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there, actually. I like your thinking. I was thinking all sorts when you were talking there. One of them was about things like LeBron James trading cards. Another one was about the first tweet being sold. And maybe that's it. Maybe it is a very highly priced piece of internet memorabilia. And maybe that's one way of looking at it as well. Right, okay, Lois, we're here to talk about Technology Magazine primarily, and so the current issue, the May issue, is out now, as you'd expect, and so let's turn our attention to that, which is hot off the digital presses, and it also features this striking front cover. Now, Paddy, I know that you did a series of interviews for this, as we can see, with the United States Air Force. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what you spoke about, and then we'll watch some video that we made as well.
Okay, so the lady you see there on the cover is Lauren Nausenberger. She is Chief Information Officer at US Air Force, and I also spoke to the Chief Software Officer, who's called Nick Chaillat. He's French, which is why I said it in a funny voice, and Colt Whittle, who is the Chief Experience Officer. And it's really interesting. I mean, you think about, these guys are doing huge digital transformation, and we'll talk about that in a second, because I think there's a lot in there that ties into how big organizations are approaching that. But also, I think the fun thing for me, and the thing that we ought to just touch on, is that they're basically going to build aircraft out of Lego, military aircraft. Everything is modular. Everything is so. Colt, who's the CXO, he was explaining to me how everything has to have a system, which is something that if you work at Lego, they're all about the system. Everything's got to fit together. You don't want to have to get a new bomb dispatching unit and it doesn't fit in the old plane. So you have to make all of this stuff so it just sort of clocks together. You want a new navigation system, you just rip out the old one, plug in the new one, and you're off. So I thought that was really interesting. And another thing that was interesting about that was that we talked a lot about user interface in military aircraft, and it turns out this is even though Colt is the first CXO the US Air Force has ever had, and in fact I think he might be the first person with that job in the whole of the United States military, but he's mad about UI. But he said UI goes back quite a long way, because years ago these B-12 bombers, and there kept on being these accidents where people couldn't work out what was going on with these accidents, and it turned out that there were two handles next to each other, and one was to open the landing gear and the other one dropped bombs, and people kept on pulling the wrong one, because it's dark, it's loud, it's someone just says pull that lever over there, and they put it, so they changed the shape of one of the levers, and overnight it just stopped all of these mishaps happening where people were putting down the landing gear when the aircraft was tearing through the sky. So Yeah, it was really interesting. The digital transformation piece is what I found really interesting, and there's a big problem with large organizations with digital transformation. If you're in a small company where you've got, let's say, 10 people for the sake of argument, and you want to do digital transformation, it's actually quite easy to do. You know, you can say, right, we're going to look at how we work, how we want to work, what we do, and how we want to do it, and then we will get the tools we need. And you know, Scott, you and I, we use collaborative document software. That all ties into our communication systems as well. We have all sorts of project management applications we can use, and all of this stuff ties together and it works together. It's quite nice, and it's very easy to use. And that wasn't a big project to set all of that up. But if you are a very large company, you know, like yeah, I was going to say ICI, but that doesn't exist anymore. It's a terrible example. Just trying to pick a sort of large neutral company that's not a technology company, because they ought to be better at digital transformation. But these guys, you know, they've got this project approach, what's called a waterfall approach, where you look at things and you say, well, what we need to do is get from A to B, and once we get to B, then we'll decide how we get from B to C. And that is not the way that people work now. So people work in, you know, well, you can call it what you like. You can call it DevOps if you work in software, or Agile if you are trying to market it to someone. It's got plenty of different names, but it basically means you work towards Z from A, and you work on everything at the same time, but in a very streamlined and efficient way. And that requires that you have quite a deep look at what you're doing. It's very difficult to do in a large organization because lots of people are siloed. They have different technologies they're already using. They're reluctant to let go of them. They work very effectively for, you know, what that particular department does. But then you're faced with a problem where different bits of software in different parts of the organization won't talk to each other. And we might talk about data a bit later, but not being able to access data from some divisions of your company is a huge problem. You know, you have to have everything in one place, and you've got to have this unified mindset of getting to a sort of large scale transformation where everything works together. And it's also something that the private sector is relatively good at. Whereas if you're a large government organization, you're used to things that take 20 years. You know, you're going to build an aircraft carrier or a submarine. It takes a long time. You know, you don't do it overnight. You don't build a submarine that's going to sit in the water for 30 years in 10 minutes. You know, you spend 20 years thinking about how you make it last for the next 20. And it's a complex thing to do. It has lots of different people involved in it. So their acquisition strategy has been quite lengthy, and it doesn't work for them anymore. You know, the modern landscape requires that you are a much faster and fleeter organization, even if you're big government. So all of this is, you know, they're having to look outside, and a lot of these guys, you know, Nick, who's the CSO, and Colt have both come from private sector. Nick is a serial entrepreneur. He's started 12 companies, I think, or sold 12 companies. Maybe he started 24 and only sold half of them. But you know, and so it's a real gear change for him to come into this, and quite frustrating, but in quite a good way, because he's come in and said, this isn't how people work anymore, and we need to clear the decks and get in all of this new stuff. And part of that is partnerships with much smaller organizations. So if you want to do a government project, you have to have this quite lengthy and expensive pitching process, tendering, where you go in and you explain how you're going to deliver your project. And if you don't get it and you're a small business, that would put you out of business. So these guys are working really hard to bring in smaller companies to create access doors where they can come in, and rather than putting together this binder of information, they actually just bring in their prototype software and say, here, this is what we built, this is what it does, this is the security, this is the functionality, and it can just be reviewed as a prototype. And again, that's something that the private sector does very well, which is, don't give us a load of paperwork telling us what you're going to do. Just go and do it, bring it to us, show it to us. It's show and tell, and then we'll take it from there. It's much faster, and this is how you stay ahead. And the military is fighting wars on not just land, sea, air, subsurface, which is submarines, but also increasingly in space and in the cyber arena as well, which is something that I'm sure we haven't got time to talk about cybersecurity now, but
all right,
another time. Let's leave something
absolutely,
for another show.
Yeah, God, yeah. Let's leave something. Let's leave it there. I mean, just in case you want to read more about what Paddy's just told you, I think he's given us the whole feature there in about 3 or 4 minutes.
It's full of fascinating things.
Which is why I wanted to interrupt you and say, let's have a look at a couple of videos that we made for this as well. So let's have a look at the first clip.
My name is Lauren Knausenberger, and I am the Chief Information Officer for the Department of the Air Force. In the DevSecOps realm, we're at the point where we can deploy many times a day. Sometimes we're deploying to too many different environments. And so as the CIO, I look at that and say, okay, we really need to, at all levels of classification, make sure that we have a really robust cloud environment and that we are putting in place the right incentives to make sure that people are using that enterprise environment so that we don't have development teams that have to maintain 20 different baselines. We have refocused our strategy a bit more onto digital transformation. Having that cloud infrastructure, open architecture, so that no matter what you're doing everywhere, it can connect back to the mothership, the edge strategy, meaningful data, and having platforms where people can be empowered to work with their data and to share their data. The tooling is a huge part of digital transformation. It really comes down to having the agility to do all of these things very quickly at scale, and that when we innovate, that they are able to innovate from that higher level and provide all of that rock solid foundation for them.
Okay, I do love that video. I just want to say, actually, if anybody is out there and wants to place any comments, if you just go to the show and go into the comments underneath, then you can post any comments and say hello and everything else there as well. Now, for some reason, I think normally we have people joining us from all over the world, but I can't see many today, so I don't know. I think maybe it's down to our internet connection, that maybe that functionality just isn't working from our side. But it's great to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. Now, Paddy, before we show another video, which is from, now I'm going to pronounce this correctly, Leidos,
like
Thank
kaleidoscope.
You. I know I get it right. Like kaleidoscope, Leidos. So you were talking there about how these huge organisations, and obviously government organisations like the US Air Force, are really turning towards the private sector and tech innovators, because obviously that's what they need to do. And sometimes those innovators are very small operations, and previously a client, if you like, or somebody like the US Air Force might have been considered off limits because they might not have been, they might not have the size or the pedigree to be a key supplier to somebody like the US Air Force. This is something that I heard. I did an interview with the British Army a few weeks ago here in the UK, which is actually going to go into next month's Technology magazine, and they're undergoing their own digital transformation as well. And it sounds like there's some clear parallels between your interview with the US Air Force and mine with the British Army as well. But we'll talk about that again in a second. Sorry, go ahead then now.
So I think one of the fun things about talking to the military is this huge paradox, because they are, they're some of the greatest innovators of the last century, and yet, the thing Lauren said to me, she said, well, I used to tell people that, we can hit a fly in the backside from the other side of the planet, but you want to send an email? Not happening. So they're
Exactly.
really good at developing defense technology, but the things that the rest of us think are simple, they make really, really difficult.
Okay, before we get back to the serious matter, somebody has posted a comment saying, does anybody recognise the background that was in the video that we just saw? And yes, here we go. It was Technology Magazine, actually. Someone's pulling the strings there in the background. Anybody recognise the background? If I'm not mistaken, somebody please do tell me, it looked to me like the Millennium Falcon, and that looked like the sort of the chess set in the background.
You got it in one.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you, Stuart. We all love a bit of Star Wars, and as the saying goes, let the Wookiee win. Not referring to somebody that we interview for one of our other magazines. So we do have another video from this bonanza that you put together for this issue, Paddy, and that is, as I said earlier, the Leidos video. So let's have a look at that.
Leidos is the largest information technology provider to the federal government, defense, intelligence, federal civil agencies, and even health. Where Leidos really comes in is helping the U.S. Air Force adopt commercial solutions and best-in-class IT, as well as workforce transformation, software development, digital engineering. Looking forward, within 5 years, we're just getting started. Leidos as a company has worked very hard not only to help government, but also staying ahead of the pace of change. If you're standing still, you're falling behind.
Okay, Paddy, anything to add quickly, a few 20-30 seconds before we move on?
I was just thinking of Top Gun when I was watching that, which is isn't there a new Top Gun coming out any second now?
Yeah, I think there is.
In fact, it probably would. Rebooting Top Gun. It's all going to be about digital transformation in the I think that's actually the US Navy rather than the Air Force, but it's got planes in it, so that's all right, isn't it? Would you go and watch a film about large-scale digital transformation in the cinema?
Well, of course I would. I feel like I do that every day. I just want to say a few things. A few people have joined. Actually, do you know what? I think I've realised what this is. I think I'm only seeing comments come up from my own personal connections. Which might explain it, actually. So just a quick hello to Sophie Tyranniuk as well. Thanks for joining us today, Sophie Tyranniuk, wherever you are today. And then obviously I can see all of my BizClick colleagues as well. So thanks, everybody. So still to come after the break. We're not even at the break yet, and we're 29 minutes in. Still to come after the break, we'll have the results of our reader poll. We'll talk, well, if we have time, we'll talk about flying cars, and we'll see some more content from this month's magazine. So don't go away. We'll see you after the break.
I am Chris Derdijn. I am one of 3 partners of Delaware here in Singapore. Delaware is a global systems integrator. We have a global organization with global best practices and knowledge and so forth, but we are local, very strongly so, in terms of how we operate the business, how close we are to our customers and so forth. We specialize in back office automation in the broadest sense. We do core ERP and then the whole gist of systems around that, going from warehouse management to logistics to marketing automation and CRM and so forth. So we help customers automate their business processes. Delaware actually is a relatively small player still today in the Singaporean market. Delaware has recognition in the SAP space thanks to the Pinnacle Awards that we get in the last few years for our work around S/4HANA. And here in Singapore, we ride on that global success by bringing these best practices here So we see that SAP really looks at us to help make the market, and we believe that in the next few years, in this particular market segment, we should be able to rise to at least the top 5, if not top 3 of SIs in the Singapore market.
Singapore. Takes me back a few years. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. Now, we'll probably try and race through some of this second half of the show, because Paddy are clearly getting carried away with the ability to talk to an engaged audience about all things technology. As you can tell, he does love a little chat about tech. So we've got lots more videos coming up in the second half of the show. We've got the results of the poll. As I said, we're going to be talking about our live events, which are coming up later this year. And we've got a regular feature that's called Tech That Takes You Back. So if nostalgia ain't what it used to be, stick with us, and we'll be talking about a classic piece of consumer tech from not too long ago, but let's see if Paddy knows the year when we come to it. But enough about the past. We're all about the future here at Technology, and technology is all about the future. And since the 1950s and the Jetsons cartoons, people have been dreaming of flying cars. You only have to look at what is it, Blade Runner. Blade Runner's got flying cars, hasn't it? Don't tell me you haven't seen Blade Runner, Paddy.
I have seen Blade Runner. I've seen the director's cut of Blade Runner, and I think I've seen a newer one, Blade Runner 2036.
Oh,
I fell asleep in.
Terrible reboot idea. Anyway, we're digressing, and we're trying to trim this down in the second half. So anyway, flying cars. But now that fantasy is inching ever closer, thanks to a series of giant drones, and that's the only way I can describe them. Giant drones capable of carrying passengers relatively short distances, powered by renewable electricity. I mean, these are effectively, they're like helicopters, but there's no pilot. They run on small electric motors, and you can recharge them with a few solar panels. Paddy looks like he doesn't believe me, but let's have a look. Now, one example, because there are a few companies around the world that are trialling these in places like Dubai, unsurprisingly, Paddy. One example of this is this beauty from a company from China called Ehang. Now, I've been following this company for a few years actually, and seeing it develop. Let's take a look at their flying taxi. Oh, we're having a look. Can we have a listen as well? Maybe not. Okay, well, I'll talk about it. Well, if the audio kicks back in, I'll shut up. There's a promise for you. So yeah, this is the Ehang. Oh, no.
You're gonna cut your hand off getting into that, aren't you?
I think chances are that the motors don't actually start until you're inside. I'd like to think.
Well,
it's not a case of. It's not like a helicopter where, you know, if you jump up while you're standing outside it, you'd be very silly and very dead. I think those rotors would only start once you're inside it. I think we'd better give up on that video then. Oh no, hang on a minute.
Though, Ehang.
Ehang. It fills with confidence, doesn't it? So is that the Yorkshire version of the flying taxi?
Right.
But as you can see, this is not CGI. These are not renders. I'm hoping you can see that video. But these are actually flying around in the air. Obviously, they're guided by various AI and systems. There we go. That looks a little bit smoother. And they are perfect for flying out to that place. That is actually a hotel, an actual physical hotel that does have these Ehang heliports on top of them as well. Oh, I really wanted you to hear this. But anyway, these are flying taxis. So, you know, they could be a replacement to helicopters. Good idea for flying in between, across cities, for instance. So if you're in Manhattan and you're trying to get to JFK, for instance, it's a perfect alternative to taking a helicopter, and you don't need a pilot. So I think let's stop that video now. because it's just sort of glitching away at me a little bit, and we're a little bit short of time. But anyway, I do like an eHang. Next time we'll try and play a clip with a little bit of music, and you can actually hear them talking about it as well. Okay, well, still to come later in the show, we do have that aforementioned tech that takes you back. But Paddy, I think we may as well talk a little bit more even, about another one of the features in this month's magazine. And one of them you wanted to talk about, I think, was data visualization. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, the democratization of data, I like to call it. I'll try not to get as carried away as I did last time, because I don't want people, I want people to be able to get to bed at some point. But data visualization, yeah, it's really come of age. There was a time when data, lots of people talked about data. Lots of people went into meetings and said, "Oh, it's really important. We've got the data, and there's no such thing as too much data, and big data, and all of the buzzwords around data." But they were all locked up in a room, and the only people who had the keys were the data scientists. So there's a huge industry that's been at work on trying to get data to a point where it's very visual. You can see what's going on. So even if you are someone who, who feels a bit nauseous when you look at a spreadsheet, you can take a look at, you might find a pie chart easier to look at, or something that changes color or changes size. And this is really making data more useful to more people, and so that companies can use data to create ideas and new directions of travel for their business, without that just being filtered through data scientists. So that's what that's about. It's a fascinating article. We've got some of the top data companies in the world talking in the article and giving their view on the future of data visualization and the democratization of data more generally.
Excellent. Do you want to just name check some of those data companies for me?
The only one I can think off the top of my head is Tableau, which is very well known. They're certainly in it. There are others. It's a while since I wrote it. I hate to make a mistake.
That's fine. Let's not make any mistakes. This is all the learning curve here, and obviously we don't want to give everything away, because what we want to do is we want to drive people to our website to read our glorious magazine. And that web address again, if you look on the bottom of the screen, is Technology Magazine. No, it's down there. technologymagazine.com. Or go and see our sister publication, AImagazine.com. And eagle-eared viewers will notice that I missed out the www there, as I said I would start to do. You see, so you can teach an old dog new tricks after all. So, still to come, still got plenty of stuff here. We will have to wrap it up at some stage. But I want to tell you about a new event that's coming up, which is produced by BizClick Media Group. And this event is Technology and AI Live. Now, this is going to be broadcast from London to our global audience via our virtual platform. Early bird tickets are already available, and the link to the event you'll be able to find in our comments, and of course you can find out loads more by going to our websites as well. But we've got a trailer right now for the show, so let's have a quick look at that. Well, there you go. That was very dramatic, wasn't it? As you saw there, the dates that we're talking about are the 14th to the 16th of September. Now, there are going to be absolutely dozens of speakers each day. There's going to be keynote addresses, roundtables, maybe a few surprises too. And we're going to be announcing further details of all of those speakers and all of the content we've got lined up in the coming weeks. And obviously stay tuned to the magazine and stay tuned to our websites and tune in again to this show to find out more details. We'll also be having various guests coming on to this show who are going to be appearing at the live event later in the year. So go ahead, go to the website, find out more about it now, and remember, early bird tickets are available right now. So I think it's about time, Paddy, that we talked about the results of this poll of yours, which was which company do you trust most with your data. Now, to start with, for people who haven't seen the poll, can you tell us which companies we actually threw out there and gave people the choice of?
So we had 4 companies in there: Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Google. And I've got the results here, but before I do, I want to see, Scott, who do you think people trusted most with the data?
See, that's a tricky one.
Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and Google.
Yeah, I know you're trying to feed me the right answer, but I genuinely, I think, would have said Google. I'm completely wrong, aren't I? Okay, why do you tell me the results and then tell me why I'm completely wrong?
Because I feel like we've had we had a conversation even earlier today, I think, about Apple closing down the app's access to their users' data. Apple absolutely streamed away with this. 62% of poll respondents said that they trusted Apple most with their data out of those 4 companies. I did say that our chat about Facebook earlier was going to poison the poll. Facebook came dead last with 1%, and wow. Google came second, so you weren't far off the pace, but 20%. So only a third as many people say Google as Apple, and Amazon came in 3rd place with a respectable 16%.
Okay, so I didn't completely disgrace myself, and maybe that's because as well I'm not an iPhone user. You see, do you think that iPhone users would naturally have more of an affinity to saying yes, I trust Apple?
No, but I do think it's part of Apple's marketing is to say, we are all about your privacy, your data privacy, your data security, and they started doing that about 3 or 4 years ago in earnest. At their events, they take a lot of time to talk about privacy, to talk about, this is your device, you pay for it, what you do with it is yours and not anybody else's. Whereas companies like Google and Facebook are using your data to make money. Facebook doesn't charge you to use Facebook. You don't have to pay $10 a year or whatever to use that. And maybe you should, because there's I think also Facebook's been damaged by what was that Netflix show called, the Social Dilemma, and that was very hard on this point that if you're not paying for the product, then you are the product. Your data absolutely is the product.
Yeah. I like to think that I'm not a product, but I'm probably wildly mistaken.
People who say that are always they're very bankable products.
Exactly. All right, let's move on a little bit. There's just a couple of things I wanted to talk about before we start to wrap things up. And obviously, while we're on the subject of polls, you might remember in the days before we had the technology show, we did actually publish a list of the top 100 women in technology. Now, that was to coincide with International Women's Day, which was on March the 8th. And we're actually sort of doing it all again. But this time we're doing a supplement called the Top 100 Leaders in Technology. And so we are asking you now to go ahead and nominate your top 100 leaders. We are going to deliberate and collate and celebrate these in September time, and we're going to publish that as a supplement as well. And it might also tie in with the live event that we have planned for September as well, because that would make perfect sense, right? We can maybe announce the top 100 leaders at our live event as well, because hey, let's face it, most of those top 100 might well be there. So nominations for this are now open. So again, if you head to the comments, or if you head to our website, which is, as you all know, technologymagazine.com, then you can find out more details. Thank you for bringing that up. You can find out more details, and you can also nominate as well. So go ahead, nominate someone who really deserves to be in that top 100 list. And we look forward to discussing that more and starting to release some names as well of people who have been nominated. Now, other BizClick activity. It's been a busy few weeks, I tell you. There's been all sorts going on, Paddy. I actually hosted a webinar last week, I think it was. It's SAP and their 5G Council, and it's called Why 5G Matters. And this is still available to watch on demand, actually. It's a great webinar, fascinating discussion between myself, Frank Wild of SAP, Arlene Couchy from Verizon, Jerry Hoberman from Deloitte, and Demed Lair from Digital Route. And I am going to use the American style pronunciation of route or route there as well. And as I say, this is all about how 5G is being utilized by businesses right now. So if you think that the applications of 5G for business are 2 or 3 years down the line or in the future, absolutely think again. And we talk about loads of case studies where businesses are implementing this right now and doing some really interesting work, particularly in the retail area, actually. Now we might have, you can see on the screen there's the landing page for that. As I say, this is available on demand. As ever, check the comments, check our website, you'll find everything you need to know. We might have a clip actually from this. Do we have that? If so, can we watch that now? Hopefully we've got a clip which is from Verizon, which is talking about 5G and actually explaining the whole thing about what the 5G Council does and why 5G matters. Do you know what? I'll carry on. If at any stage that cuts in, that's fine by me. So finally, we might be able to show that at the end of the show, actually. If you guys can get that lined up, that'd be cool. So, and finally, as they say on all good news broadcasts and chat shows, we have this new regular section that I dreamt up a few days ago called Tech That Takes You Back. And hopefully by next show, we'll have some suitably scratchy kind of black and white footage and some music hall style music to accompany a little sting, little intro to this section. So, one of the... Paddy looks a bit bemused. One of the great things about consumer tech is, of course, nostalgia, which, as I said earlier, ain't what it used to be. And in this regular slot, we're going to talk about some of those great tech devices and moments from down the ages. Now, with Friends, that episode, here we go, with the Friends reunion airing this weekend. It's the perfect opportunity to remember how far things have come since Friends first hit our screens back in 1994. Now, you see that phone there, Paddy? I didn't have one of those, but I lived in a house with a TV producer friend of mine, Robin Ashbrook. Hi, Robin, if you're around. And he had that exact same phone, the classic brick. Do you remember phones like that, or was that before your time?
I vaguely do, yeah. I remember people having car phones where the handset wasn't actually that big, but there was a big brick. So where your armrest would be, you pulled out the armrest and you had this huge battery pack there. It was about the size of a car battery, and then with this little phone on the top of it.
But you say that, Paddy, but I mean, you know that I do not drive the latest model of a vehicle, but I can actually tell you the car that I drive does actually have a car phone inside it, and it is in the armrest. So if you lift the armrest, there is actually a receiver that you can pick up, and there is a dial built into the dashboard. And I'm going to keep that car because one day it's going to be worth something. Well, I just want to tell you quickly about my first phone. It was a Sony. I remember it well. It was only about, hang on, that's a bad thing. It's only about yay big. It didn't have a screen, and it had a little flip down microphone. So when it rang, you pressed a button and a little microphone sort of flipped down like that. And I really did think I was like James Bond every time I used it. And that battery, it could easily last at least 2 phone calls. And this was obviously the days before text messages, so we didn't even need a screen because there was nothing to read on there. But anyway, I mentioned earlier about the Apple. This is a rather tenuous link. The Apple iPhone. Do you remember what year the iPhone was introduced?
Me?
Yeah, you. I'm not asking the audience, mate. I'm asking you.
Of course I do. I worked for the world's largest consumer technology magazine at the time. It was 2007, I think.
God,
January.
I can't believe it.
January the 11th. I want to
Well,
say.
I'm impressed that you got it. It is, you're absolutely right. It is 2007. Launched in 2007. It was at Macworld, I think. I mean, does that still exist, Macworld, or has that been rebranded into something else?
Was it launched at Macworld? I don't think it was.
Oh,
I
here we
think
go.
I think you might be wrong about that. You might be right. There was a point when Apple used to go to Macworld, but they haven't done that for a long time. They pulled out. It ruined Macworld. They just decided to do. They did it in January because it coincides with the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, which they've never taken part in, and it's almost a bit of a kick in the teeth for CES to have Apple just suddenly making the biggest consumer electronics announcement every January in the middle of its show. Everyone just decamps Las Vegas, heads over to San Francisco, and finds out what's really going on. Very annoying for them.
Exactly. I imagine it is. Anyway, so in our house, in our well, I won't tell you where it is because lots of valuable items are hidden in this particular place. But this is what I like to call our mobile phone graveyard. So whenever our mobile phone breaks, and they break quite often, don't they? It gets shoved into the mobile phone graveyard drawer. And I did actually find here, I don't know if you can see this beauty. This is actually an original iPhone or iPhone 1 or whatever they call it these days. And it is tiny. So you can see when it was announced, actually, I watched it being launched. They were saying it's got a huge 3.5-inch screen, which obviously was a lot in those days. And they turned it around and said it's got a 2 megapixel camera on the back. I just want to hold this up. So this is my current Android phone, and that's the original iPhone. So that's how ridiculously big they've got. But I'm again, like my old car, I was going to swear then, like my old car, I'm hoping that one day this might actually be worth a few dirhams or a few dollars. Why are you shaking your head? Surely there can't be many of these still in existence.
It'll never be worth anything. I also have a big drawer full of technology, and every now and then I go on eBay and see what people are selling things for. The old click wheel iPod, and I've got a nice one. I think it's 60 gig, but it's worth nothing. And even I've got some prototype stuff, which I probably won't tell you exactly what it is because someone will want it back. But even that you don't get very much for. It's technology. It moves on. There aren't people yet running museums where they want this stuff, and until there are, and also that iPhone you're holding, how many units of that did Apple sell? It's not exactly a scarcity, is it?
No, I don't know. I'm not having that, mate. Because think about it. Yes, they might have sold a lot, but how many of these just found their way into a rubbish bin or a rubbish tip somewhere, which is terrible. But I'm just saying, how many? I mean, I'm not vouching for its ability to still work, but I reckon that could. I might actually bring this into the office and start using it. Look at that; it's fatter than my wallet. And
I've got the same one. We could be really annoying and go around with our original iPhones with no data signal.
Excellent.
Edge.
That sounds like a grand idea. Right, I'm just gonna speak to the video team HQ, guys. If we have that Verizon video, it's now or never. Let me know. I think that's a no. Okay, all right, well, we can play that next time. As I say, that the SAP 5G Council video is available to watch on demand. Go to our website, www.technologymagazine.com. I said I wasn't going to say www, didn't I? But you can go there, and all that remains is for me to say, is that some noise going on in your office there, Paddy?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Someone's just turned up with a drill and started drilling into the side of the building. They've also turned out all the lights in here. So if you notice the lighting changed, that somebody's installing a new security camera on my office.
Excellent. It wouldn't be one of our LinkedIn Live shows without some kind of tradesman turning up with a noisy device.
Unexpected interruption. There you go.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, that's been 55 minutes of pure gold as far as I'm concerned. So none of our shows have gone on this long. It is the director's cut on our first ever show. So first of all, I want to say thank you everybody for joining us out there in the world of technology and AI, and thank you, Paddy, for all of your wonderful insight and talking about the features that we've done in the magazine.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your excellent emceeing, which has matured. Less swearing than I remember.
I don't know what you're talking about, but yes, thank you for that, Paddy. I think we almost kept it clean. We almost kept it legal. So remember, this show is available to watch on demand as well. You know where to go, technologymagazine.com. And do tell all your colleagues and anyone else out there who might be interested in talking about tech and AI. And if you want to be a guest on a future show, please let us know. We'd love to have you on here. And so yeah, thank you to Paddy. Thank you to the video production team in the background for pulling all the strings. And thank you to joining us. This has been a BizClick Media Group production, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks everyone. Bye.